The Road to War. Written and narrated by John Miro. Get more at servingworlds.com. "34. The door ahead roared to life, grinding upwards. Willard clotheslined Bonner and Lockman to the right of the corridor and pressed down in front of them. Scotty helped Lee drag Bowen to the left, then made himself small behind the lieutenant. As the door rose, a medium-sized pair of spacer boots appeared. Beside them, on the far side of the slowly rising curtain of door, a pair of gigantic metal dinosaur feet also appeared. An amplified voice boomed from somewhere above the dinosaur feet. "You only got the hots for Angel 'cause he's got a wife back home and you know he's A playfully annoyed woman's voice interrupted the amplified man's. "Shut your wrong-ass mouth, Corporal, sir, and no, I'm not secretly into you either." The woman bent low and ducked under the pressure door long before her mech-wearing partner could follow. She'd be dead if we were Janine, Lee thought, watching the smile freeze on her face. A spark of shock replaced the smile, and she quickly dropped and rolled back under the door. "Threat, threat, threat!" she barked, leaping to her feet and taking cover behind the mech's legs. Not bad, Lee thought, revising his opinion of the private first class with the name tag Padalecki on the front of her suit. Fast reflexes, and her first act was to notify her partner. Didn't have any ego about diving behind the mech's armored legs either. That was the smart move, but sometimes cocky soldiers chose what they thought was brave over what kept them alive. "Stand down, Padalecki, this is Angel. We're friendlies, stand down." Each of the mech's arms had centered on Lee and Willard's cluster of bodies, but hadn't fired. Lee stared at the bulky crystal canisters and glowing wave emitters mounted in the place of the usual tri-cannons. In an enclosed space like this, even a short squirt from the primitive weapon could have been lethal. Willard was on his feet, hands raised, weapon swinging on its sling under his arm. "Good to see you, Tyler. Padalecki." He rubbed his palms on the front of the insulated fatigues he wore. "Top marks on your fire control." The cockpit of the mech sloped down, the clear crystal screen retracting, revealing a very surprised man inside. "Fire control? You coming in hot, Lieutenant?" The woman crouched behind the mech stood up, face now flaming red. Lee could imagine what was going through her mind. Doing the right thing, taking cover, didn't necessarily feel like the right thing when a senior officer was there to catch the whole thing. Lee was surprised to see Willard also caught on to that. "Swift report and sound retreat to cover, Padalecki," Willard offered casually before continuing to answer Corporal Tyler's question. "Assume it's so, Corporal. Button up and take rear guard." The mech's cockpit snapped shut, and the legs were moving before the last word left Willard's mouth. Not quite the same man, Lee judged, surprised and impressed by his old unit's pilot. "Let's keep moving," he ordered. PFC Padalecki just stared coolly at Lee, then looked back to Willard to take her cue. "This is Captain Li Zhang," Willard confirmed. "He has command." "Yes, sir." Erin stood at attention, facing Lee. "Captain." She whipped off a smart salute. Only then did her professionalism break, when she realized the lines on Lee's skull were ugly, puckered scars. "As you were, Padalecki," Lee said gruffly, turning before he saw something in her face he wouldn't like. He helped Scotty lift Bowen to his feet. Bowen waved off Padalecki's following gasp with his one good hand. "Jesus, Aaron, never seen a paper cut before?" They moved faster with Padalecki's help. By the time they got close to the spoke's third and final pressure door, Lee had seen her twice refuse a direct order from Willard to give the doctors a turn supporting the lieutenant. PFC Padalecki was strong, determined, and obviously dedicated to Bowen. Lee and Willard quickly explained the soup sandwich they were trying to escape. "There's a small weapons cache in the hub," Willard said at the end of the description of the day's fun. "Until then, eyes peeled." "Sirs?" Tyler's voice rose from speaker vanes along the back of his suit. "Unless a wielder implant requires a new model of mech, the captain can steer mine. I'm rated with handheld weapons if you'd make better use of the suit, sir. Lee realized he'd never countermanded Willard's order before stepping out past the mech at the rear of the line. The pilot was bending over backwards not to tell him to get the hell out of the way before trouble found them, and Lee got iced in the ensuing firefight. I'll take rear guard. You stay close in case I need backup. Begging the captain's pardon? Sorry, Corporal. This looks foolhardy, yes? A smart soldier, Corporal Tyler said nothing, choosing silence over insubordination. Cough up a blue charge, Corporal, Lee ordered, dropping his weapon to hang on its underarm sling. Right side toaster, please. The rectangular ammo feeder, or toaster, on the right side of the battlesuit whirred. A small, egg-shaped container was fed out the top. Lee grabbed the crysteel charge and held it aloft. He looked back. When Padalecki was watching too, he willed a flat, crystalline blade to grow out of his left wrist. Padalecki and Tyler shouted over each other, making the words a jumble. When Lee's implant-controlled crysteel blade sliced open the casing and shook the heavy, cake-like mix of crystalline powder and sand-sized alloy pellets out, Padalecki screamed and Tyler swore. "Easy, kids," Willard said. But his voice was unnerved too as he watched the demonstration. Lee sent a surge of energy through the wave emitters embedded in his hands. Blue light rippled down, converting the components inside the canister into a shining curtain of blue. Lee raised his hands and willed the thin sheet of crysteel into two perfect cubes. The barest blue rippling strand connected the two uniformed matrices of crysteel to his wrist emitters. Thanks for the offer, Corporal, but I'm fine out here. How do you sustain the reaction? PFC Padalecki called out, her voice slow, odd, but still curious. Batteries fused into my spine, he said casually, and a few other porous bones. Oh, Padalecki said in a small voice. Lee pushed dramatically with his hands, and the two cubes rippled almost like pixelating images. After the ripple, they were twice the size. You're controlling the show with those sensors in your wrist? How do you keep the lattices connecting them so small? Corporal Tyler asked. Even second-gen wielder mechs can't manage what you're doing with their onboard computers fired up. That's classified, Scotty, Dr. Kincaid said softly beside Lee. The batteries in my bones double as co-processors, he said loudly in a fit of petulant rebellion. They're constantly rescaling the reaction to keep the particles from fully forming. I've also got more powerful emitters. He stiffened, drawing in some of the latticed material. It burned inside his arms until he let it out through emitters on his forearms, behind his elbows, cut into his shoulder blades. Now 4 geometrically perfect squares rotated in the air along each arm. Now you're just showing off, Lee, Scotty said in a quiet tone, and you're going to burn through your stored power. All right, Doc, Lee said, closing his eyes and drawing a huge breath. The stream fell in on itself and disappeared completely into his emitters. Lee shrugged his shoulders and shook out his arms. Kinda tingles, he kidded. It hurt, in fact, but his interface could dial the sensation down. He pointed forward. Let's keep moving. The pressure door behind them exploded. You have been listening to Reach, The Road to War. Written and narrated by John Miro. Music, All This by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Hear more of the story at servingworlds.com. Thank you for listening.